Historical linguistics is very fun.
Very good, nice.
My name is Gerd Carling and I work as associate professor at Tallinn University, general linguistics. But my background is in comparative linguistics and in particular Indo-European linguistics. So, but I also been working on Tocharian, which is an Indo-European language, dead Indo-European language, as well as Romani Chib, which is also Indo-European but Indo area. So these are my two specializations. Now currently I'm working on more like big data and language phylogeny, evolution and geography and so forth. Well, it's the mystery of the unknown somehow. I don't know, it's a little bit like linguistic archeology, because you want to know what's in these texts, who are these people, what were their thoughts and beliefs, and what did they talk about, and in particular also, of course, very much the code cracking of dead languages. That's quite a thrill when you succeed eventually, because it's often in dead languages, if they are not well known, it can be very tricky to understand what's in the texts. So the project that I'm working now with Mouton is this very special project. It's like a linguistic atlas, but it's not just an atlas, it's also like something that prepares data for all kinds of statistical testings, but it takes a certain amount of data. We have about 120 grammatical categories and about 100 words, and then plus basic vocabulary, of course. And then we compile data from many languages, and we put that together, so we make like large data sets which are comparable. And the Mouton project is to map that out in space, so to see how different categories spread geographically, how they map in space, and what's the difference. And that the interest is like to capture the granularity of language change, but in space. That's the idea. It's a book, and it's going to have lots of maps, and the maps are fun to watch. And you know, because some language, what you see when you see on language change in that perspective, is that some languages are huge, some are very small, and some features occupy very large territories, and some features are very consistent also in time, because part of the project, an important part of the project is to collect also ancient data from dead languages. So first there is a map with the living languages, and then there is a map with the dead languages. And then you can see like consistency of certain features in space and in time. And that's interesting. It's very fun to just look at. I don't think it's a very hard question. To me, it's always Tocharian. It has all the qualifications to be the perfect language. It's dead, it's small, it's very weird, and it doesn't have a pure typology or morphology or anything. Everything is completely mixed up, and it's very difficult. And yeah, so that's the perfect language, Tocharian. That's the answer. It's interesting because it's like really the unknown. It's like the moon. It's something that's on a different planet or in a different time, and so that's why. But it also has, it has some connotations to other languages as well, and that's what makes. When you see the connections, if you see something that is so distant and so out, so far away, but you still see the connections to the languages that you know well, like English and German or so forth, then it's interesting. That makes it interesting. I think that it's a very strict methodology, in particular comparative linguistics, but also general linguistics. And that methodology is, at least to us linguists, works very well. And it means that the results you receive from linguistic research, they have a high certainty and the high reliability. And that's why it's also relevant to other disciplines. Like, I know a bit about archeology, also history. If you have a culture and compare that culture with a culture with non-written sources, and then compare that to a culture with written sources, the amount of knowledge in the written culture society is very much higher, very much higher. So that's because of the methodology of linguistics. So it's easier to get certain knowledge about things in the past when you have language, and that's why I think language matters, even though it's probably boring as to outsiders. I mean, grammar, what's that? I mean, what's the purpose of studying grammar of dead languages? But that would be my response. It matters because it's important, because it has a very good methodology. I think that, you think about culture. When you think about culture, the first thing that comes to your mind is something that it's a label that is linguistic. You say American culture or English culture, that's a concept. But what defines that? That's the English language. And that's the most important criterion. And that goes for everything. Depending on if it's a very, very small society with like 80 speakers or 200 speakers, or whether it's German or English. So it doesn't matter whether it's big or small. The label or you put onto a culture is defined by language, and that's why language is important. And of course the study of language too. So it goes for many things. As we talk about languages, different type of languages, and the value of preserving languages, of course, no matter how small they are. And so I think there are many lessons. I mean, if you want to talk about lessons to learn from linguistics, also to culture.